Hello and welcome back. This video is going to be how I like using tandem rigs in saltwater. Now, unlike the freshwater one where I actually have them tied differently, different lengths, saltwater I almost keep it that original 1/3 on top to 2/3 on bottom. All right, that initial tie of about 6 to 8 inches up here and you know 12 to 18 on the bottom. And that really tends to work well in a variety of situations. And really what it comes down to is what you have hooked on and how strong the current is really kind of picks that. Now, if you've seen any spec rig, you'll know this jig head. A little common spec rig jig head, not a big hook on it, not super heavy. Usually come two to a rig, and really one of my first experiences with tandem rigs. Caught the biggest spec of my life, personal best to date. Hopefully one day I'll catch bigger, but it was a 26-inch spec trout, very large fish, on one of these little 99-cent spec rigs that you buy. All right, so they do work, especially with schooling predators like redfish and trout and things like that. Small little school really gets them to strike sometimes, but it works on other fish as well. And I'll go over really kind of how I like using the different setups depending on the fish. Now, if I'm doing kind of an open water tandem or there's a real heavy current, I'll go double jig head, usually a swimming bait, paddle tail, or even a curly tail swim bait, a smaller one on top. Or if it's real light current, I even go straight hook or more like a bass hook style, like a cocoa tail here or a smaller tout, things like that. And then I can go say I go hook on this one, or a real light jig head on this one, bass style hook on this one if it's really light current, or almost no current if I'm in the back bay. All right, or heavier current, paddle tail, curly tail, straight tail. Doesn't matter as long as again I have my heavier jig head on the bottom, a lighter jig head on the top. All right. Often I'll do different colors just to see again which one's going to get hit more. Sometimes, like I said, one will get hit all the time, but they still like that other one as an attractant. Other times you'll find it splits pretty well even. Now, if I'm shallow or I'm up in marshes and there's a lot of plant around, grass, things like that, estuary type environment, I go a little more for the shrimp baits versus the smaller bait fish. I will use those in open water too, but I find these to work well on the marsh areas as well. If I want to stay real light, smaller little shrimp bait with just a hook or a real light jig head here. Alright, this one's got it already built in. Pretty lightweight there, 1/8 ounce I think is what that one is. And I'll go with a 1/4 to 3/8 ounce heavier jig head with a mop on it, and I can put a curly tail on it or another shrimp bait on this one. Oftentimes I'll tip those, especially back in the backwaters, with a small little piece of salted shrimp or squid, something like that, just to give it a little more of a scent attraction. Now, I find that works well for a variety of fish, redfish, a trout, even flounder, that rig. So definitely one of my favorite little setups right there. All right. The other one that I really like using for flounder are going to be the curly tails. They work well, just jerking off like a bulkhead or something like that with current coming by, if they're coming in and out on a tide, or a little split tails like this is a small little minnow one right here. That's going to be kind of my lighter rig that I'm working slow. I'm going to have very light jig heads on these, or again just straight hooks on the top one, a lighter jig head on the bottom. But those are the ones I want to really stay in the water column and kind of work real slow, especially when I'm working the bottom for flounder. Definitely keep my little scented chunk on those, particularly the bottom rig. And I really like working curly tails. I have a lot of inherent action, doesn't take a lot of current to move those around, and they can draw attention even when you just kind of let them drop and they both fall. Then it's two different sized baits looking like they're kind of feeding off the bottom, and I find that'll work. And I'll even get strikes from on top from trout and things like that with that rig. So tandems can be very effective in saltwater, very effective in saltwater. But try different things. All these are very tried and true lures. I'm not saying anything new to those that have done saltwater fishing a while or have seen any of the shows, but I definitely find tandem to increase my odds of getting hookups or bites in and of itself. And I've found some of these combinations to work very effective for me, particularly in the Gulf Coast area where I'm fishing. I definitely have seen an increase when using my little salted bits of shrimp or squid, because obviously scent does attract fish and get them to hold on a little longer. But I've caught sheep's head on these rigs, which is very rare, but Flounder, definitely on my tandem rigs. Redfish, trout, sand trout, even croaker and whiting. So definitely catch a variety of fish. Um, it helps keep off when you're being more active with artificial from things like catfish and the like. Though gaff tops will hit them. I have caught gaff tops on this rig. But again, smaller bait on top, larger bait on the bottom, no matter which one you're going with, whether you're just hooking on a jig head or if you're taking a pre-rig swim bait or pre-rig shrimp bait. Either way, that tends to work really, really well for me. I will say this, I like the lighter colors when it's clearer water, and I like the darker colors when it's muddy, or the in-between at least. Sometimes your combinations work really, really well, but there's a lot more mud than there is clear in the areas where I end up fishing most of the time. Also, the light ones work really, really well under lights. If you're on a pier or anywhere near a boat dock where there's lights, I find the lighter ones catch the light, especially the sparkle, and that'll get a lot of bites at nighttime. All right. Any questions or comments? Feel free. Thank you very much.